Nagi Seishiro has officially been locked off. The latest chapter of Blue Lock delivered one of the most emotional cuts of the entire series, and one that's been a long time coming. Yo, what's going on everyone? My name is Animasu, and in today's video, we'll be diving deep into one of the most fascinating and tragic characters in Blue Lock, Seishiro Nagi. Whether you've loved him since his first appearance, or found yourself frustrated with his lack of drive and recent downfall, Nagi's journey is anything but simple. From a lazy prodigy who effortlessly dominated the field to a player struggling to define himself in a world that demands evolution, his arc has gone through incredible highs and crushing lows. With chapter 298 officially locking him off from the current phase of the story, it's the perfect time to revisit his trajectory and figure out what went wrong, why it matters, and whether there's still a chance for him to return stronger. Let's start all the way back in the first selection, where Nagi is introduced not as a passionate or driven player, but as someone who moves through life like he's half asleep, only here because Ryo Mikage dragged him in after discovering his raw talent. Ryo, who already had dreams of becoming the world's best, saw Nagi as the perfect tool to make that dream happen, and Nagi, having nothing else going for him, just went along with it. Ryo handled the tactics, the planning, the vision, while Nagi just executed it beside him as a blank slate with genius-level instincts. This imbalance was the beginning of a long-term dependency that gave Nagi a place to shine, but never really challenged him to grow beyond what he already was. His attitude in these early chapters shows just how out of place Nagi feels compared to the rest of the strikers. It's not just that he's lazy, it's that he can't understand why anyone else would care that much. His tone, while chill and spaced out, often masks a sense of detached superiority. He genuinely doesn't get why other players are struggling or trying so hard. Even in his body language, he carries this almost passive, arrogant disinterest in the stakes of Blue Lock. But that same moment also shows the seed of curiosity beginning to bloom. Why is everyone else pushing themselves? What is it that they see in football that he doesn't? The questions linger in his mind. Early on, Ryo carries him through most of the strategic play, with Nagi reacting more than acting, letting Ryo handle much of the responsibility. Their dynamic is totally lopsided, but everything changes in the match against Team Z. This is where the dreamlike pace of Nagi's world starts to crack. The loss stings, not just because they were defeated, but because for the first time, Nagi didn't like the feeling of being outclassed. That raw spark of frustration became something new, an inner conflict. He doesn't fully understand it yet, but something has shifted. This moment sets the stage for everything that comes next, and it's no longer just about going with Ryo's dream. Nagi is starting to want something for himself, even if he can't articulate it yet. Fast forward to the second selection, and Nagi makes his first real decision, leaving Ryo to team up with Isagi and Bachira. He doesn't verbalize it well, but internally, he knows this choice will hurt Ryo and makes it anyway because it feels exciting. For the first time, Nagi is stepping towards something because he wants to, not because someone else pushed him. We see Nagi and Isagi reflecting on how they both relied on others in the past. Isagi on his ideal image of a striker with Bachira, and Nagi on Ryo's vision. That shared understanding helps solidify their bond and sparks Nagi's shift in mindset. The difference in dynamic is immediate. Isagi's calculated approach and Bachira's spontaneous playstyle expose Nagi to new ways of playing and thinking. He starts anticipating moves, making his own decisions, adapting mid-play. He's no longer just reacting, but rather creating. His performance in the 3v3 match against Ryo's team is especially telling. Despite their history and bond, Nagi chooses not to return to Ryo's side. Instead of making an offer, Ryo outright pleads for Nagi to pick him, clearly emotional and desperate to hold on to their partnership. But this time, Nagi doesn't advocate heavily for Ryo to be selected. Only once. It's not some sort of cold-hearted betrayal, but rather a calculated moment of reflection. Nagi, alongside Isagi and Bachira, evaluates what combination would be best for their collective egos and genuine growth as players. His decision is rooted in a newfound sense of ambition. What path will help him grow, challenge him, and push him forward? That rejection shakes Ryo to his core, triggering their eventual fallout. Ryo confronts Nagi about abandoning their shared dream, and the conversation reveals just how different their goals have become. Ryo clings to the idea of winning the World Cup together, while Nagi is starting to crave challenge and personal fulfillment. This arc becomes the moment where his brain finally starts catching up to his raw skill. Even though they lose to Rin's team, the growth is undeniable, and Ryo, watching from the sidelines, sees a version of Nagi that no longer needs him. Then came the third selection, where Ryo finally starts to process Nagi's evolution. After struggling with his identity and watching Nagi ascend to the top 6, Ryo is left reeling. On the surface, he's supportive, even congratulatory, but deep down he's conflicted. During their time back on the field together, it becomes painfully clear how wide the gap has grown. Nagi has turned into someone who chases the game on his own terms, who creates and scores, experiments independently. Ryo, in contrast, is still searching for his own identity and strength. That's when the chameleon ability awakens, a reflection of his desire to adapt and survive in this ever-evolving battlefield. But even then, Ryo knows it's not enough. He can support Nagi, yes, but he's not at the level where Nagi would actively chase after him the way he once did. And so Ryo sets a new goal for himself, not just to become stronger, but to become someone who Nagi would one day chase. His decision to become more independent isn't born out of rejection or bitterness, it's a resolution, but still to chase after codependence. Ryo accepts that Nagi has changed, and rather than try to reclaim the past, he commits to surpassing his own limits. It's the most mature thing we've ever seen from Ryo up until this point, and it adds a whole new layer to their dynamic that we see continue into the new Egoist League. Moving into the U20 match, Nagi is now among the elite, chosen to one of Blue Lock's top 11, and despite the presence of stars like Rin, Sai, Shido, and Isagi, Nagi does not fade into the background. Instead, he scores the goal that ties the match, a perfect shot to show the depth of the Blue Lockers' egos to the world and ability. Ryo, meanwhile, is subbed in late as a defensive presence, his new Chameleon ability being utilized to handle Shido and support the backline. While the two are technically on the same side, they spend the match contributing in completely separate ways. For the first time, they're moving independently. Nagi capitalizes on a failed shot by Otoya and scores a stunning solo goal, officially introducing himself to the football world in Japan. Ryo, on the other hand, proves his worth in a support role, holding his own on defense and showing flashes of adaptability, but the contrast between them has never been more apparent. Nagi is at the center stage, while Ryo watches from the backlines. That separation, both literal and symbolic, highlights the diverging paths that these two have now taken. To start the new Egoist League, both players choose England for purely independent reasons. Ryo picked England due to the teams he liked and the wealth and opportunity. Nagi, on the other hand, simply saw a Premier League player with incredible trapping skills online with Chigiri and was inspired to follow that path. After meeting their master striker, Crispin's immediately foreshadows Nagi's downfall by stating that talent without self-awareness will wither away. While he's mostly referencing physicality and body development, it also applies mentally, as he adds that success without understanding the mechanism behind it becomes a curse and haunts the player. Early in their first match, we see Nagi and Ryo genuinely try to apply what Agi and Prince have taught them. They take independent shots, each trying to carve a role for themselves, but when the game closes at 2-1, Nagi panics. Instead of adapting or trying harder, he reverts to what he knows, calling out to Ryo and begging to team up again, just to beat Isagi. It's not even about evolving or building something new, it's about winning in the quickest, most comfortable way possible. Ryo obliges, and in doing so, diminishes Agi's coaching, claiming that Agi failed to awaken Nagi. But this was only halfway through their first match, and Agi's system was never given a chance. Nagi scores a phenomenal goal, yes, a 5-stage volley that will go down in Blue Lock history, but Ego himself says it gave him nothing but discomfort, because it cannot be reproduced. It wasn't progress, it was a burst of temporary magic. And the worst part is, they lose. The selfish duo gets outplayed. Isagi once again reads their rhythm, intercepts passes, and proves that their predictable chemistry is no longer viable at the top. Even after the match, with Nagi trying to dive deep into his ego, Ryo just tells him to aim to make 300 million yen and then Nagi can be as lazy as he wants. But this dream is built on comfort and very flawed. After this match, MANSHINE continues to struggle. In the following 2 games against PXG and Ubers, their results are disastrous. MANSHINE is completely dominated, with Ryo and Nagi making no notable impact. Chigiri scores their only goal in the PXG match, while Rin delivers a hat-trick to dismantle their side, and Don Lorenzo and Bado neutralize any threats Nagi tries to make in the Ubers game. These matches show just how far behind Nagi has fallen compared to the likes of Rin, Bado, and Isagi, who were pushing the boundaries of the game and philosophy. Instead of learning from this and searching inward to find his next step, Nagi looks outward again. He even speaks with Rin, asking what drives him. Itoshi Rin explains that his singular focus is on surpassing Sai and obliterating Isagi, but when Nagi asks what comes after that, Rin just tells him not to worry about that. Babies don't think about death when they're born, they just live life with everything they've got. Nagi also asked Bado a similar question, and Bado's answer is just as definitive. He'll become the best in the world and defend that title, end of story. Both of these answers come from places of strong identity, something Nagi still lacks, but instead of reflecting deeply and forging a new personal goal, before the final match against BARCHA, Nagi once again goes to Ryo and asks him to give him a new fire. Rather than tapping into his own ego and building a vision from within, he chooses the only method he's ever known, relying on Ryo to give him direction and purpose that he can't find. It's a cycle that's repeated time and time again. Instead of diving into the discomfort that Agi and Chris Prince ask him to face from day one, instead of taking the hit and searching for what makes his football unique, he seeks comfort. This moment sums up his greatest flaw, not laziness, but his inability to challenge himself when it really counts. That reliance on Ryo once again delays the very evolution that Blue Lock is meant to force. It's a disappointing but revealing moment that shows just how deeply this codependency runs, and just how much it stalled his evolution. Finally, against FC BARCHA and MANSHINE's final match, we clearly see Nagi recognizing that their current path is no longer working. It's become increasingly obvious that if he doesn't dream of being the world's best on his own, he and Ryo will simply fade away. With the game tied at 2-2 and Ryo already having a goal and assist to Chigiri, the pressure shifts heavily onto Nagi. He knows he must rise up and make something happen. Nagi apologizes to Ryo for always being such a pain and dependent on him, swearing that this time, he'll get fired up and find a way to impact the match on his own. But the problem is, it's too little too late. He tries to channel what Agi taught him at the very beginning of the NEL and implement an active, independent playstyle, attempting to play with creativity and flow, but it's clear that he's never taken the time to actually hone those instincts. He's never refined his thinking or studied opponents deeply like Isagi. As a result, his attempt at a fake volley, something that previously brought him glory, gets completely shut down by Otoya and BARCHA, who reveals that they have planned counters for that exact move. The moment that Nagi shut down, he's overtaken by a very real sense of fear and despair, a pressure that he's never truly dealt with before. It's a crucial opportunity for him to evolve, to step up as a true egoist with his back on the wall, but instead of pushing through, he collapses. Ryo comes sprinting in, screaming for a pass. Nagi gives in, passing instead of adapting. In that instant, we see his flame and aura visibly dim, an emotional death of what could have been his awakening. Bachira intercepts the play and drives the point home, telling Nagi the egoists who can't live on their own learned nothing from Blue Lock and are destined to fade away. This moment is a painful callback to Nagi's own words to Bachira in the second selection, when he claimed that Isagi wouldn't choose him. The irony is poetic. Isagi and Bachira, once a dependent pair, grew into the independent aces of their team, while Nagi, despite his talents, remained stuck. Bachira finishes the match with a goal, and Nagi is left with nothing. No goal, no assist, and no impact. His rank drops to 24th, just one place below the cutoff to Blue Lock's top 23. 1 million yen short, one moment of growth away from surviving. And that right there is the tragedy of Nagi Seishiro. But what exactly is it that he needed? Nagi had never experienced true despair or rejection. Until now, he's always had someone to fall back on. Ryo, Isagi, or even just his natural talent. Now, he has nothing but himself. And that forces the biggest question of all. Who is Seishiro Nagi when no one is there for him? When we look at his aesthetic and symbolic role in the story, there's always been an undercurrent of rebirth and ego death. The number 4 is tied to death in Japanese culture, and Nagi has had countless moments where that number or motive surrounds him. His ego imagery is stark, bleak, skeletal, and still. But death isn't just about endings, it's about change and transformation. The idea that the old Nagi has to die so something new can be born has always built into his character. Add that to his obsession with video games and his love for trance-like states of flow, and you begin to understand how he operates. Nagi doesn't seek meaning, he avoids it. Games are simple, predictable. Real life is not. Football became a game to him, but when he stopped giving him that instant stimulation, he lost focus. He's not lazy, he's very disconnected, and the game at its core was the first thing he ever connected to people with in a real way. Now that he's failed and been cut off, he has a choice to make. Either accept that he was never meant to reach the top, or rebuild from zero with a new perspective. And that brings us back to Ryo, because their relationship has always been complicated. Ryo poured everything into Nagi, crafted him, uplifted him, and in a way, saw Nagi as his creation and treasure. Nagi appreciated it, but as time went on, he wanted to be more than that. He wanted to explore beyond Ryo's dream, and when he faltered, when the pressure rose, who did he call to? Ryo. Not because they shared a dream anymore, but because Nagi didn't know how to operate on his own. Their dynamic is a perfect example of codependence and selfishness that was never fully addressed. And now that it's failed, they both need to reconsider what they want as individuals, not as a duo. So where does that leave Nagi? Right now on the outside, locked off, but maybe that's the start of something new. Maybe this is when he finally realizes that if he wants to be great, it cannot be about what other people want or what excites him for a moment. It has to come from within, a true ego. If he does return, and I think there is a real possibility, it has to be completely different as a player. Someone who's seen failure, embraced it, and decided to fight his way back on his own. I'd love to make a follow-up video on how that could look, what kind of playstyle or mindset a reborn Nagi would have, and whether or not he could clash or connect with Ryo, Isagi, or the other monsters in Blue Lock. Let me know in the comments if you want a theorizing video on that, and of course, drop a like and subscribe if you vibed with this breakdown. Until then, I'll catch you in the next video shortly, and thank you all so much for tuning in.